Hi everybody, my name is Haley and this is my April wrap-up and May TBR. So for the month of April I read 6 books and 5 of them were regular novels and then one of them was a manga, which I actually don't have with me, so I'll put it like somewhere over here. So since I have kind of a lot to get through, I'll just start right away. So the first book I read was Dreamin Sun by Ichigo Takano, and that is the first volume in I'm pretty sure they have 8 volumes out right now, about a girl who her mom dies and her dad remarries, and so she's sort of dealing with her stepmom and their new baby and sort of feeling like she doesn't belong, so she runs away from home and ends up meeting these 3 guys who she moves in with, and it's all about her figuring out like sort of her place in the world and, you know, finding her own home and stuff like that. And if you hear a baby talking, that's my son in the background, so yes, hi, perfect. And I gave that one a 4 out of 5 stars. And then the second book I picked up in the month of April was The Bells by Danielle Clayton, which I loved. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and it's about world. Everybody is born gray, so you're born with like gray skin and like straw like really coarse hair and red eyes, and in this world there are people called bells who can alter the way you look. So say today you want blonde hair and olive skin and green eyes, but tomorrow you want black hair and dark eyes and really bright white skin. Like, they can change that for you. And there's a competition to see who will be like the chosen belle of sorts, for like the king and the queen and the princess, like the royal family. And our main character Camellia wants to be the best belle, so this is sort of all about that and her figuring out that there's a lot more behind the scenes than she thought, and that is, you know, led on. And it's sort of about like what is the price and the importance of beauty, and this is really like an introductory novel. Like, you can tell that there's going to be a lot more, at least I hope so, that happens with like later novels, because I really liked it, but I kept feeling like I wanted more. You know what I mean? Like, I kept like wanting it to be like edgier and darker and like more being revealed and like less being set up, but there wasn't that much being set up, sort of like Camellia didn't really know like what was going on half the time. Like, she didn't really know how the bells worked. She just like had sort of been told by like the teacher, what was her name? Anyway, she had just been like sort of told by her teacher, and like that's all her and her sisters like knew. Like, there wasn't much like world building as far as like the actual bells go, so hopefully that's like they have more of that in like the later books. I think it's supposed to be a trilogy, but yeah, either way, it like got me out of a reading slump, and it read really fast, and it was really enjoyable. Like, I tabbed it up a couple times, so for that I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then on a whim I picked up Things Rising by C.S. Pacat, which is the 3rd and final book in the Captive Prince trilogy. So I can't really say much about this book, but basically our first book, which is Captive Prince, follows our main character Damon, who is a prince from Akelos, and he gets sent into slavery to like the southern like territory. So this whole series was just like a mess. Like, it was a mess, but like I'm trash for it, and I loved it, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Like, the first one so when I first heard about the series, like the first one, Captive Prince, I heard that like it was so shocking and like so dark and grotesque, and I was like, wait, like what? Like I was just expecting this like, I don't know, like my description doesn't really do it justice because I don't want to give anything away, because I feel like you should go in not knowing much about it, because I went in like doing research because I thought that there were going to be like all of these really awful topics talked about, and in my opinion there wasn't much. But I've seen people give like trigger warnings for like pedophilia, like abuse, which there is, and like sexual assault and stuff like that, and like I get like there are those themes, but in my opinion it's not like what you think it's going to be. That could just be based on, you know, that's just my opinion. So that's just based on like what I think is extreme and what I think is really shocking. So if you're really sensitive to those things, then I probably would just like leave this alone. But I didn't think that it was that as much as it sounded like from other reviews that I watched. So that sort of like dampened it a little bit for me, because I was expecting this to be like really shocking, and that sort of like prohibited my reading in the beginning, because there were themes and there were things hinted at. It's like glossed over, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, it was really good. I loved it. Once you got past all that and you're like through the later half of the first book and then the second and third books, those aren't like themes anymore. Like we're just moving through the story of Laurent, who is the prince that Damon is sent to, and Damon sort of working against everybody that is sort of conspiring against them. And this was so much more like politically twisty and like smart and funny than I was expecting it to be. So I would highly recommend. If you're overly sensitive, just don't bother. But if you're not, you should definitely pick up the Captive Prince trilogy. It was great. Overall, I gave the whole series a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. So then after the Captive Prince finally being over for me, I was like, what do I do? Like I was sort of like I read it in a day. Like it was so fast for me. So I was kind of like, what do I do? Like I really want to pick something else up that I've had on my shelves for a while, and I'm sort of feeling in like a prince and princessy mood. So since I just happened to have these two trilogies next to each other on the shelf, I picked up Paper Princess by Aaron Watt, and I didn't want to know too much going into it. So I'll try and save some out for you guys so you can go in without knowing too much. But this is about our main protagonist named Ella, who is sort of like living in the slums. Her mother has passed away, and her father has always been absent from her life. After her mother passes, she is like working in a strip club to sort of pay for her way through high school and just like survive in this like lonely apartment. And one day, Callum Royal comes into her life and is sort of like, hey, I was your father's best friend and I am your legal guardian now. Like, I'll explain everything later, but like you have to come with me sort of thing. And she's like, I have literally never known anything or like spoken to my father. Like there's no way, like you're not coming into my life when I've been so independent this whole time and telling me what to do. And so that's sort of where our novel starts off. And Callum has 5 sons, and they are just like ridiculously rich, like billionaires rich. And his sons hate Ella, like want nothing to do with her. And Callum is sort of like trying to put together the pieces of his own family while still like bringing in Ella, and she just doesn't really care. And it was just a mess. But again, I'm also a mess, so I'm trash for this. Like it was not what I was expecting, and it was so good. Like I hated how much I liked this. And I know that there's some of you that are judging me and they're like, that's trash, or just seeing this and they're like, Haley, you're trash. I don't care. I am, and I'm admitting it, and it was so good, and I read this in a day. Probably less than 24 hours. So naturally, after this, I went on to read Broken Prince, which is book 2, which I also read in a day because I had to know what happened. And this was just like, what, like Like, what is going on? Like, at the end of this, I'm like, are y'all for real? And then naturally, I had to know what happened, so I picked up Twisted Palace, which is the third book in the original first trilogy of the Royals. So I read the first three, and this one I gave, well, here, let me just go over what I gave all of them. So just as a recap, I gave Paper Princess 4 out of 5 stars because I loved it and I don't care. And I gave Broken Prince 3.5 out of 5 stars because it was good, but it was slower, and I just like wanted that like let's go, like what is going on, like this is so ridiculous, and things like every single time you thought that something was like gonna make sense and they were finally like getting over a hurdle, they weren't, and something else ridiculous was like happening, and I'm like, where are all these people's parents? Like, how are these kids allowed to just like be awful? Like, I just didn't understand. 3.5. And then I gave Twisted Palace 2 out of 5 stars because it was just annoying. Like, it was good, but it was annoying, and I was like, can we just get some resolution? Like, can we have like some more ridiculous antics? Like, I'd rather read, and I know this is super superficial, but I would rather read about shopping trips and drama than like ridiculous outlandish scenarios where like people are being blackmailed into things that just would not happen in real life. And it's like, here's what was really frustrating for this book. For this book for me, and I know this review was all over the place, so just bear with me, but what my problem with this was things would happen and you'd be like, that's absolutely ridiculous. Like, just tell that person to go screw themselves. Like, who cares? Just tell them no. Like, they're trying to blackmail you? Say, okay, I don't give a shit. Goodbye. And then they would be like, why aren't I just telling them to go fuck themselves? But I'm just not going to because I'm scared, because what if something maybe happened? And it's like, so you know, but you're just, it was annoying. Anyway, I would recommend, if, all in all, I would recommend it if you're looking for something easy to read for the summer and like maybe you're in a reading slump and you're trying to get out of it, I would recommend. So with the exception of Dreamin Sun, these are the 6 books that I read in the month of April. So really quick, I'm going to get into my May TBR. And a lot of these are books I just recently got, and I'll be doing a book haul for all of them, so I'll just go over them really quick. First book I want to read is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. And this has been all over BookTube, so most of you probably know what this is. It's a Little Mermaid retelling with sort of a siren-esque theme, and it's supposed to be really dark. I've heard sort of mixed reviews, but I've heard mostly good reviews, so I'm excited to get to this one soon. And yes, most of the books that I got this month are green, and I'm living for it because it just became spring like 2 days ago in Indiana, so. And then the second book I want to get to is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, and all I really know about this is it's about a lady that moves into a suburban town, sort of about like going against the grain, and that's what they describe as little fires. So I'm really excited to pick this one up. I've heard only good reviews about this. I don't really want to know too much going in, so it's like I can take in the full experience, especially because like I have a son and I sort of feel like my dynamic goes against the grain a little more than like your traditional like nuclear family. But yeah, I'm really excited to get to this one soon. And then the next one I'm really excited to pick up, which I have already started reading, I am 62 pages in, is Difficult Women by Roxane Gay, and this is a like short story out of like really dark themes like sexual abuse, like pedophilia, weight gain, trauma, loss, domestic violence, all kind of stuff. And those are just like the like I said, I'm only 63 pages in, so like I've got a lot left. and that's what I've read so far. I mean, it hasn't, I've heard that this is like super shocking and really hard to read, and fortunately, again, for me, it hasn't been thus far, but it's still really good, and these are all really important stories. I don't read too many short story collections just because they're not really my thing, but I'm excited to read this one throughout the month because I think it will be important. And then next up is My Friend Dahmer by Durf Bachdurf, which is a graphic novel told by a friend of Jeffrey Dahmer, sort of about his life, and I am already like 25% through it. It's decent, it's cute. I mean, not like the story is cute, but like the artwork is kind of cute. So yeah, I'm excited to get through this one and then watch the movie because they have it up on Amazon Prime and I really want to check that out. So, My Friend Dahmer. And then the next one is All the Beautiful Lies by Peter Swanson, and I picked this one up because I saw a recommendation of it from a booktuber named Gabby. I forgot her regular channel, but I'll link it below. She reads a lot of thriller, and usually the books she likes I also like, so I picked this one up, and I love Peter Swanson. I read The Kind Worth Killing by him, and it was literally insane. Like, the twists that kept going on, I was like gasping. Like, I went and told my boyfriend like right away. I was like, oh my god, this happened and this happened and this happened. Like, I completely spoiled everything. So I am excited to pick up another Peter Swanson book. I don't know too much about it. I know that there's a lot of like provocative and like non-conventional and like wrong relationships that happen in it, and that's really like all I knew and wanted to know for me to have to pick this one up, because if it's anything like any of his other books, it's gonna be f***ed, and that's what I'm here for. So, and then finally this month I want to get to A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J Maas, because most of us at this point have just come to accept that we are all Sarah J Maas trash. It's fine. I just need to know what happens. This is the novella that goes in between a court of... I forget it. In between A Court of Thorns and Roses and her new and upcoming series, so I finally got this in the mail yesterday and I'm excited to get to it. So yeah, if you guys stuck to the end, that is everything. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys with a new video soon. Bye!